Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're opening up really a treasure chest of history, focusing on just one singular noble figure, An-Numan ibn Muqarrin. May Allah be pleased with him. He was a leader whose life perfectly illustrates, I think, the power of immediate conviction, just unwavering faith.
Yeah, and defining victory in a totally different way. Not about the odds, but about the sacrifice involved.
Exactly. Overwhelming sacrifice.
And we've been digging into the sources, looking at his spiritual journey, his military genius, especially the events leading up to that decisive battle.
The one they called the Victory of Victories says it all, really.
It really does. A conflict that just shifted the ground.
So our mission today, really, is to try and extract those deep spiritual lessons, maybe some strategic ones too, from a life lived entirely for principle.
And understand that inner strength, right? That source of strength that lets believers face what seem like impossible challenges.
Yeah, where does that come from? We're looking for those aha moments in his leadership.
Okay, so let's unpack this journey. Where should we begin? The conversion seems like the natural starting point.
Definitely. We have to start with the origin story. An-Numan, he was the chieftain of the Muzayna tribe. Powerful tribe, along a key caravan route near Yathrib, which became Medina.
Right.
And when the news of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, arrived, An-Numan, well, he didn't hesitate. He didn't wait around, check the political winds, or try to negotiate terms.
No, it was immediate. The sources really emphasize that this instantaneous recognition of truth. That's kind of his signature, isn't it?
It really is. He gathers his elders and makes this beautiful rallying cry. I love this quote. He says, "O my people, by God, we have learned only good about Muhammad, and of his mission we have heard nothing but mercy, kindness, and justice."
Powerful words.
Then he asks, why do we tarry while people are hastening to him? Just cuts right through any hesitation.
That's the sound of someone valuing principle over everything else. Prosperity, status.
And the effect was just electric. The sources say the very next morning, his 10 brothers,
Wow.
and 400 horsemen of the Muzayna tribe, all ready to go with him to Medina, ready to accept Islam.
Imagine that scene in Medina, that sudden, huge influx of commitment.
Yeah, the sources note Medina had never seen anything like it before. A single family, 11 brothers in total, plus 400 horsemen, all accepting Islam together.
But what makes it even more profound, I think, is the context, the sincerity of their sacrifice, because this happened during a really tough time for them.
Exactly. The sources emphasize this. It was a year of drought, of famine for the Muzayna. Their livestock had mostly perished.
Yet, An-Numan felt, well, the sources use the word embarrassed to show up in Medina with nothing to offer.
Right. So even facing famine, he goes around, gathers up whatever sheep and goats were left, like the very last remnants of their worldly wealth.
Incredible.
And brings them as a gift to the prophet. This wasn't giving from surplus. This was sacrifice during extreme hardship.
Okay, but let's pause there. From a purely practical, worldly view, wasn't that incredibly risky, maybe even, irresponsible, giving away their survival tools during a drought?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Logistically, yeah, it seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Defies worldly logic.
But this is where that spiritual lesson, tawakkul, that complete trust in God, really kicks in.
Explain that a bit more.
Well, An-Numan clearly understood that wealth sacrificed for faith. It yields spiritual returns that far outweigh any material loss. He was operating on a different definition of security, you see.
Ah, okay. Redefining security itself.
Precisely. And that sacrifice, that purity of intention, it didn't go unnoticed. It was divinely recognized.
It led directly to a Quranic revelation.
Yeah.
Right. Surah At-Taba, verse 99.
ومن الأعراب من يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر ويتخذ ما ينفق قربات عند الله وصلوات الرسول ألا إنها قربة لهم سيدخلهم الله في رحمته إن الله غفور رحيم.
Commending those who see their spending in God's cause as a way to draw nearer to God, it elevates the act beyond just charity. It sets the stage for everything he does later.
That deep early conviction.
Which brings up a question maybe for you listening. What gave An-Numan and later his army the strength to keep going when they were so vastly outnumbered? If they were willing to give up their only means of physical survival during a famine, maybe that tells us something. Their courage later wasn't just military training. It was anchored in that initial, profound, sincere conviction.
That conviction certainly carried him from a tribal chieftain to well, a key diplomat confronting the superpower of the age.
Yeah, let's fast forward a bit to the Caliphate of Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, specifically just before the Battle of Qadisiyah.
An-Numan gets chosen to lead the delegation to the Sasanian Emperor Yazdegerd III in Ctesiphon.
And this scene is it's a masterclass in diplomacy, but also in how honor is defined. You've got the peak of worldly power at Ctesiphon, gold, silks, unimaginable opulence.
Meeting this delegation from Medina, simple clothes, maybe looking a bit rough from the journey, the contrast must have been jarring.
Totally. The sources describe the Persians looking at the Muslims with like a mix of curiosity and outright disdain.
They noted their simple clothes, yeah, and even thought their horses looked weak.
And Yazdegerd, sitting there amidst all this splendor, basically asks, why these? He called them wretched people, dared to even approach his lands.
So the perception of weakness, that actually amplified the spiritual power of An-Numan's message, didn't it?
I think so. It's like this unintentional psychological setup, worldly materialism versus spiritual dignity laid bare.
So An-Numan speaks for the delegation, lays out their purpose, inviting mankind to what's best for them. He explains this new faith leads people from the darkness of tyranny and unbelief to the light and justice of faith.
Simple, direct, profound.
Then he presents the famous three options: accept Islam, pay the jizya, or face war.
And it's important, I think, for us to understand jizya here. It wasn't just a random tax.
Right.
It was essentially a tribute or protection payment for non-Muslim citizens living under the caliphate's rule. It guaranteed their safety, their religious freedom. It was part of a clear political structure being offered.
A structure based on justice, not just conquest.
Exactly. But Yazdegerd's reaction, it just perfectly shows the clash of worldviews.
Oh yeah, he was furious, dripping with sarcasm, ridiculing them again, most wretched, few in number, starving. He even offered them charity, said he'd clothe their leaders, put a gentle king over them out of pity.
He defined honor entirely by wealth, by numbers, by outward appearance. An-Numan defined it by faith and justice, worlds apart.
And this leads to that incredible moment with the basket of earth.
Yes, the strategic pivot. Yazdegerd, totally enraged, calls for a basket of earth. He orders the Muslims' most noble person to carry it out of the city gates. A sign of utter humiliation, he thought. Dismissal.
So how do we analyze that? Taking the earth, but flipping the script.
Yeah.
Seeing it not as humiliation, but somehow as an advantage. What kind of mindset does that require?
It requires absolute faith, complete tawakkul again. Instead of reacting emotionally, getting defensive about the insult, Asim ibn Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, steps forward and accepts the basket. And he declares it a happy augury, takes it back to the commander, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, and basically says, congratulations on the victory. The enemy just voluntarily surrendered his territory to us.
Incredible. They completely redefined the meaning of the act. Yazdegerd thought he was giving them dirt.
And they saw the keys to the kingdom. They turned humiliation into confirmation of God's promise. Victory defined by faith, not force or political standing right at that moment.
That earth literally represented the territory they now knew God would grant them. It's an amazing intellectual and spiritual maneuver.
And that confidence, that certainty, it led them straight into the ultimate challenge.
Which brings us to Nihawand, the climax of An-Numan's life, really.
Yeah.
The battle that cemented his legacy.
And the situation was, well, it was truly desperate. The Persians weren't giving up despite earlier defeats at Qadisiyah and elsewhere. They were furious, regrouping.
They gathered this massive army, some sources say around 150,000 warriors. This was meant to be the final decisive blow to crush the Muslim presence for good.
A huge mobilization. The threat was existential.
Caliph Umar, back in Medina, was advised not to lead the army himself. So he had to choose a commander capable of facing this immense force.
And his chase was immediate, wasn't it?
Instantaneous. He chose An-Numan ibn Muqarrin. He reportedly exclaimed, "By God, I shall appoint as commander-in-chief, a man who, when the two armies meet, will be the most active." He completely trusted An-Numan's proactive spirit, his sincerity.
But even with that trust, you see Umar's deep care for his people. He wrote to An-Numan urging extreme caution.
Yeah, that letter's poignant. He affirmed that one Muslim person is dearer to me than 100,000 dinars, a leader valuing human life above all else.
Absolutely. But caution aside, An-Numan still had this massive tactical problem on the ground.
Right, the battlefield itself. The approaches to the fortified city of Nihawand, the Persians had covered them with caltrops, iron spikes, designed specifically to stop cavalry charges.
A deadly trap. They couldn't just charge in. So how did An-Numan, known for his directness, overcome this without huge casualties?
This is where his strategic thinking, maybe learned through all these experiences, comes in. He used a brilliant ruse.
Okay, tell us about it.
He ordered his advanced cavalry units to light fires at night, make a bit of noise, and then pretend to be afraid. Feign defeat, retreat slightly.
Playing on the enemy's arrogance.
Exactly. It leveraged the Persians' confidence in their numbers and their defenses. They saw the Muslims seemingly pulling back and thought, aha, they're rooting.
They fell for it.
Hook, line, and sinker. Believing the Muslims were fleeing, Persian soldiers came out from their fortifications to clear the spikes, presumably to pursue them or secure the area.
Thus neutralizing their own best defense. Clever.
Very clever. The Muslim cavalry then surged forward, captured the workers clearing the spikes, and secured the now open approach to the city. A decisive move based purely on understanding enemy psychology.
Brilliant. The stage was now set for the main battle.
But the real peak, the spiritual pinnacle, came just before that final charge.
An-Numan gathered his soldiers. He outlined his command system, the 3 calls of Allahu Akbar.
Right. First call. Prepare yourselves. Make wudu. Get ready spiritually. Second call. Check your weapons. Prepare for combat. Third call. The attack begins.
But before that third, final, decisive shout, he paused, and he made this incredibly powerful final prayer, asking everyone to say Amin after him.
And this prayer, it just captures the essence of his entire life, his faith. He prayed, may God grant martyrdom to An-Numan this day, and may he grant victory to the Muslims.
Just think about that for a second. The humility, the focus. He didn't pray for his own survival. He didn't pray just for glory.
No.
He prayed for the ultimate personal sacrifice, martyrdom, and for the success of the collective mission. Submission to God's will above absolutely everything else.
His life, his death, all for the cause.
And his prayer was answered. Almost immediately.
On the third Allahu Akbar, the armies clashed. The Muslims, remember, outnumbered about 6-1, surged forward behind An-Numan.
And in that fierce fighting.
He received a mortal blow. He fell.
But his brother, An-Numan ibn Muqarrin, was right there. He immediately took charge, covered An-Numan's body with a cloth, a burda,
and concealed his death from the rest of the army.
An incredible act of battlefield discipline and selflessness, prioritizing the army's morale, the mission's success, over personal grief in that critical moment.
It allowed the army to keep fighting, believing their commander was still leading them, still alive. And they fought with incredible ferocity.
And the result?
A complete, devastating victory for the Muslims. So decisive, so final, that historians ever after called it Fath al-Fucha, the Victory of Victories.
Wow. SubhanAllah.
Only after the battle was won was An-Numan's death widely known. And when the news reached Umar back in Medina, the news of this monumental victory, coupled with An-Numan's martyrdom.
What was his reaction?
The sources say he placed his head in his hands and just wept. A reminder that every great victory is paid for with the sacrifice of the best among us.
It's a powerful image, and it brings us to maybe a gentle spiritual parallel for today. An-Numan's army, so outnumbered, facing this massive, entrenched empire. Their victory required immense steadfastness, didn't it? Incredible patience, saber, pure conviction against overwhelming odds.
Yes, absolutely.
And perhaps that same essence, that same unwavering faith, that unity of purpose, that willingness to sacrifice, rooted in saber and conviction, is what empowers believers today who resist injustice, who stand firm for truth, especially when things seem impossible.
It's the same spiritual core, isn't it? Faith in Allah, unity, sacrifice for truth, whether facing Persian legions or modern challenges.
Exactly. It's not about political commentary, but about recognizing that shared spiritual DNA of perseverance. So maybe the question for believers today, drawing from An-Numan's example, is what can we learn from his courage and his patience, especially when the odds seem stacked against truth?
It's that knowledge, maybe, that internal strength born of conviction always outweighs external might in the end. And that sacrifice is often the path to the greatest reward.
Beautifully put.
So, An-Numan ibn Muqarrin's legacy, it really spans from the sheer sincerity of his tribe's conversion, giving everything during famine, all the way to his diplomatic courage in the emperor's palace, and finally, his own self-sacrificing victory at Nihawand. His life just screams this lesson. True strength isn't in numbers, it's not an outward appearance, it's in conviction. It's in the willingness to pay the price for your principles.
So the challenge, perhaps, for you, the listener, is this. How can we strive for our own small victories of victories in our daily lives? Maybe by trusting Allah completely, even when things look impossible.
And by recognizing that real success, true victory, is defined by our sincerity and our effort, not just by the immediate visible outcome.
A powerful thought to end on.
An incredible story. Deeply inspiring. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. Don't forget to subscribe to Sahaba Role Models on YouTube for more stories like this, stories of profound faith and courage.
Definitely worth exploring more.
We'll see you next time.
طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع وجب الشكر علينا ما دعا لله داع أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع جئت شرفت المدينة مرحبا يا خير داع ما شاء الله we did it الحمد لله ما شاء بارك الله فيكم